Okay, Erin Caton, thank you so much for joining us once again.
Always happy to be here.
Well, we'll see after we're done with some of the questions here. But so let me just phrase it this way, phrase the first question this way. Who have you heard from more in the last week? People who are angry about the 8% or people who are angry about no plowing in bike lanes? Who's been angrier at you and council?
Um, in emails or
Emails, calls, random street encounters.
uh, honestly, I haven't had too many people who have emailed me upset about the property tax increase. I have had loads of people who are upset about the bike lanes.
Hmm. Is that because I guess politically speaking, who people might feel like you're more aligned with.
Oh no, I get plenty of mad emails about everything else.
Okay.
So I would have expected more, honestly, and I see some stuff online. Um, but at least from my experience of things like Guelph today, it's a lot of the same people who are always mad at
Mm,
decisions that I would make,
right.
uh, who are in the comments mad about that. So I think it kind of depends.
I want to talk about like the considerations because I mean, what was presented, I mean, to the credit of the staff, got the city portion down to 2.8. And I think when it was all said and done, it was like 3.1. So it's like, I mean, it's a lot of money when you break it down into like beyond the percentages to the actual cash, but um I said this in my Guelph Today thing. It's like this was a budget on the margins, and that's not an easy place to be for staff, for you, for the mayor. Um, so going into this, like, how realistic were you about what you could do to make like an impact on affordability and without, compromising the level of services people want too?
Well, in that we were bringing a bunch of new bylaws that could help people stay in their rentals and combat some of the changes that were made provincially. I was pretty happy about that level. I know that doesn't affect everybody and their property taxes. Those things don't affect me personally because I own my house, but we have 19,000 plus rentals in the city. So that's a significant portion of people who are actually being helped to stay in their places, hopefully, if the renovation and rental rent replacement bylaws go through as expected, as well as the vacancy tax bylaw. So those are big pushes. Um, Trying to maintain some of the free times for seniors and students on the bus passes, that was a big deal too. And keeping the jobs that people have being crossing guards and the safety involved for the kids, that's affordability for those families because those
Right.
are people's livelihoods. And there's a lot of things like that that we do. Our community benefit agreements with things like the Guelph Tool Library, as much as people don't understand it, the library itself has a lot of things in there to make your life more affordable should you choose to use it. And a lot of the other groups that we have helped support with funding. And same thing with the shelter, even though it didn't go through at the full cost, that's still helping people be able to afford their lives because they're being underfunded by things like ODSP and OW.
Right. And I want to get to the shelter in a sec, but um, you kind of alluded to this because one of the things the mayor mentioned when I talked to him about the budget was like, what was like the worst case scenario? When you're like said, stop, bring me the lowest possible levy increase. He was like, he said the thing that came to mind for him was like losing crossing guards. That was $750,000 for crossing guards. So when we're talking about like the worst case scenario, and people are like, but Aaron, 8%, what's your understanding of like aside from the crossing guards, like what did the worst case scenario look like? If we were to like look at this purely at a lens of like, because I know there are municipalities like we're doing 0%,
Yeah.
and that's but like there's a cost for that too, not necessarily in monetarily.
So there is a thing that staff put up called a budget board,
Hmm.
and all of us get to ask our questions. They get publicly posted on there. All the answers are posted on there. And I did ask that. I asked what was the equivalent cost and what could you take out? And all of them were things like the crossing guards because they're not mandatory, right? A lot of the things that we
Mm,
do are literally mandatory. We have
right.
a legislative process we have to follow. All of these things are mandated us on the government uh, from up high, and whether or not they choose to help us fund those things apparently is optional for them, which I think is the biggest part of this problem. Um, but it was our bare bones, right? It was cut way down. We've deferred so many things, and that's how we got here to begin with,
Hmm.
right? It has been saying that this is too expensive right now, like things like the Emma to Earl Street Bridge.
Right.
So like when that was first estimated, if we had put it in then the cost would have been like 5 times less. But because folks are like, no, we don't want to put in that million some odd or whatever it is, then when you wait and you wait past COVID, you wait past a tariff war, now the price is extremely high and we have to replace the Speedville Bridge. And so we either have no place for people to walk across, and we're not going to be putting bike lanes on that bridge when it gets replaced. So I'm like, there's nowhere for people to go. So you end up in the situation where you have to pay the inflated cost for something that could have been done earlier. And that decision just snowballs, right? It's a never-ending process.
Let me ask you a philosophical question. Are there any like good decisions when it comes to like you have this experience now, having gone through this for the last couple of years, but are there any good decisions and like are there any budgeting decisions that people are going to be like that that's the 100 emoji that, it's great. It's great. Zero complaints, 10 out of 10, no notes. Like that's completely impractical, right?
Like, yeah, I don't think that there's anything that anybody 100% agrees on. Even people get upset at, road maintenance if it's not in their area because they want their thing to have more priority. And um, it, I've kind of come to terms with the fact that no matter what I do on council, someone's gonna be mad about it, right? And I get that. Not everybody has the same experience. And we have to make decisions that are for the balance of the city. It's for the good of everybody, not just one individual. And um, people usually only see things that are in their own bubble, right? They don't
Right.
see the cyclists, they don't see people out, they don't see the person who has to get to their industrial job where they're making under living wage and they can't even afford the bus, right? They're not within the areas that are covered by the bus. They have to take the bicycle. And so um, they're when you're frustrated and you're overwhelmed, it's hard to have empathy for people who aren't in your own personal situation, and I get
Right.
that. But it's our job to make sure that we're considering everybody.
You teed me up for this one because one of the things I think I struggled with is watching council put $500,000 in the 100 RE reserve for something question mark. Um, Several of those same councilors then wanting to make the pay for the winter maintenance on the road bike lanes. And I don't necessarily have anything against that on principle. And then it comes the moment we're talking about expanding transit service on a new route that is like kind of designed to be modern. It's like a grid route, like it'll eventually go up and down from at one end of Speedville West to the other end of Speedville East. We're talking about servicing Conestoga, a lot of Conestoga college students in town, the Northwest Industrial area, which you're talking about, a lot of people, especially new Canadians who are, a lot of them work at those jobs, uh, getting back and forth from that end of town. Then we hedge. And I saw a lot of the same countries like, yes, 100 RE. Go, yeah, but this transit service struggling. I think I'm literally quoting one of your colleagues there. So I guess my question is like, I appreciate we want to do everything humanly possible to fight climate change. I am behind that 100%. But 30% of our greenhouse gases come from transportation. Is not fighting climate change better served by putting that money in transit first and then maybe putting money in the 100 RE account later? Am I crazy?
I think transit is one of the most important things that we should be funding when it comes to the environment because it has a direct impact on people right now. I think transit, having a good grid system, is affordability. Um, it gives people freedom of movement. It allows them to get jobs they couldn't normally get in different areas. There's a lot of things that are impacted by just having an affordable way to get around town. And especially now that the bike lanes weren't funded, we need to have viable alternatives, and we really just don't,
Right.
right? When folks were talking about, uh, we will do some multi-use pass, but we were not going to do these other things. And, bikes shouldn't be on the pass during this time versus that time. I'm like, in my ward, we don't have any off-road bike paths. We
Right.
only have them, right? And we also don't have very good transit. And that bus
Yeah.
route, when the bridge gets done, is meant to be another touch point over to Ward 1. So people will be able to live in Ward 1 and easily get to Conestoga without having to go downtown first and then come right back around and like be like a 3 hour ordeal to get to your school, right? Like at that point, you're just taking an Uber and skipping lunch because that's what you can afford to do.
Right. No, thank you for affirming my my sanity. But the piece of this I think is um that you're also getting to is I feel like there are cycling activists who don't appreciate that depending on where you are, there is no cycling connectivity. Or it is like even with painted lines on the road, someplace like Imperial, where there are sometimes painted lines on the road. Cycling's dangerous. And we've certainly seen that in your neck of the woods where they're on Victoria, where there are painted bike lanes and people are still, struck and killed. And I feel like, I mean, I may be making the argument for plowing the bike lanes, but at the same time, um, we are a city where cycling infrastructure access does not fall on everyone equally as well.
No, 100%. And I understand why it is, but we have a tendency to um, favor the university.
Right.
Comes to cycling access, when it comes to transit access, all of that. And we forget that we have high schools pretty much everywhere. And when I think about some of the changes that have led to even less kind of board school board level busing in the high schools. And I know that, I have a high school student now, and all of her friends take the bus, and then I hear their complaints, and I explain to them how they can make complaints uh, about the system because teenagers are the ones who are using this quite a lot. And if we compiled all of their thoughts into the system as well as the adults, then I think that you'd get a much larger volume of issues.
Yeah, no, for sure. Not everyone is lucky enough that their friend's mom is a city councilor either. Um, the um, the other piece of this you alluded to earlier, the daytime shelter, $800,000, just to make it a round number, which is about half of what was being sought. And I realize some of this was discussed and closed, so it's not in camera, so it's not something you can talk about freely on the radio or on YouTube or whatever. But um, the what is the thinking there, or like what was the th as much as you can talk about the thinking, because that seems a little lopsided to me, right? That they asked for 1.7 million, they're getting 800,000.
So I was going to be seconding the motion from Councillor Busuttil to fund the full amount.
Hmm.
So the conversation that was had, I lost that conversation. And um, and I think that there was just from the property tax perspective, not the appetite
Mm,
to fund it. And it's considered discretionary
hmm.
to have a daytime shelter within the municipality. So like this is optional humanity as opposed to required human rights. And
Right,
and I have an issue with that just in general, but um, given that that's what it is, and we were kind of picking and choosing in a very, very tight budget time for things that we are required to do versus things that we'd like to do.
right,
Some people, everybody wanted to help,
right,
just just straight up. Like, we all voted for the RFP. There is no one who's against helping, and everyone understands the need. But it was a matter of some people were very concerned about the property tax impact. And I understand that because it is very hard, right? We all, I think, on council, pay some level of property taxes.
mm,
And uh, so when we're doing this, we're voting up our own property taxes. We're not
right,
out there having fun. And and if you live off the salary, which very, very often I do when I don't have contracts, um, it is not an easy amount to pay. So I do understand it and I get it. It is a very tight household budget to kind of live within.
right,
Um, but when I consider the alternative of folks not having 3 meals a day and not having a safe place to be when it's freezing or when it's so hot out that, I'm sweating buckets. Like I don't feel good about that.
right.
So I wanted to make sure that that was covered. And um, the half, in theory, from past estimates that we've gotten from different groups, can cover at the very least space to
Right,
be.
right,
So I think that we'll kind of hear back from those groups because it's a all we did was approve the budget for staff to go back and talk to the two proponents. So we
right,
don't know if they're going to be able to maintain what they offered for that, if there is going to be a change in the timing or what
right.
all is going to be involved. So we're going to have to wait to hear back and see what they can do with that envelope if they're willing to do it for less.
Yeah, that's important to note too. Um, I guess then the question is, because there was a big motion brought by Councillor Alt, basically saying, sending another letter to the province saying like, hey, there's some stuff you might want to consider other than being big mad about where bike lanes are being put or whatever we're big mad about this week. I talked about this with Mayor Guthrie as well, trying to say to the province like no more downloading, no more like changing our planning policy. It's just as we finish changing the last planning policy. Um, and at the same time demonstrating like in so much as we try to do things, like as you said, 800,000 is better than nothing, and we're trying to do things, the more we demonstrate that we can do things, like create $800,000 in the budget for daytime shelter, we're essentially encouraging the provincial government at the same time to say, like, well, you're doing this yourself. Why do you need us? In terms of balancing all that, I mean, are you optimistic that this is the time that, we send a letter and somebody somebody's heart will grow, to use a Christmas metaphor, someone's heart will grow three sizes reading our very impassioned letter about our fiscal needs?
Unless that's a group that is a watchdog for the current provincial government, I really don't have a huge amount of optimism, and I survive based on just being an optimistic person. But I don't think that that's realistic. I agree with it, and I agree with the need for it. One of the things that I was looking at, just in terms of tactics in the budget, was I was trying to figure out if there are ways that we could push back on our growth mandate, because that is one of the things that's actually pushed us into the position we're in.
Right.
And, but a lot of our funding is reliant on meeting that mandate. Things that we've been given from federal governments are all about add more housing, add more housing. And I think that those are really important things to do, but we can't do that with no money,
Right.
right? And so the situation we're in with the provincial government is okay. I imagine in any job, if you were told pretty much on a every 6 month basis for 3 years, that we're going to change how you do your job.
Right.
And you have to redo all your back end processes, and you've got customer facing things. And also, we're going to make you sell whatever product that you're making for a discount for this group, but not that group, but this group, but not that group. And then we're going to give you money to help with the packaging, but we're only going to give you 10%
Right.
of what the packaging really costs. And we want you to sell this product for the same amount for everybody and change nothing else. And all of these changes have required us to like hire more staff to meet the things because we've even got penalties if we don't meet the development timelines that were put in. So there's any number of bills that have gone through that we've responded to. And just like the letters that we send about, hey, maybe you should raise ODSP and OW rates, um, so that someone can afford more than a bike shed in a backyard, right?
Right.
Because I don't know about you, but I haven't seen anyone renting out a place for $300 a month.
Yeah. At
And
least not without sharing it with 15 people.
yeah, and we've had a pushback on the social services budget from our board members,
Right.
and a lot of that was the rental replacements, and
Right.
those are in place because the provincial government is underfunding ODSP and OW. So we we're being put in an impossible position by a government that just frankly wants to give out money to their buddies
Hmm.
in the spa parking lots, in weird job program things. And I'm like, I believe sex work is real work. If any of that money was going to the dancers, I'd be like, all right. But it is not. So I think that the budget and like the mayor and I don't agree on a lot of things, but I think this was a very hard budget.
Yeah.
I don't envy him having been in that position. And I don't think I would make every decision that he would make, but I think that staff came back with a lot of um, cuts that were very hard. And we
Yeah.
do so many efficiency reports. I've just asked for a list of all of the reports that we get in information reporting to be put up on the website. So that'll be coming up at some point soon. But
Okay.
we're not allowed to be as sneaky as the province. Like we have to show all of our work.
That's right. No, for sure. And I mean, it's a good concern. And I feel like this is an appropriate place to leave it. Um, because this is the last budget before an election year next year. And I imagine you envision this question coming, considering where we are. But um, are you planning, as we sit here today in early December, are you planning on running again? And if you are planning, and even if you're not planning, but like, could you envision that this is a budget you can run on and say, like, yes, we didn't do everything everybody wants, but we are being fiscally prudent and we are managing the city as best we can under the most terrible of circumstances.
I would like to run again. It is a very hard job if you need the paycheck. So it depends on whether or not I have another job that is financially viable to help alongside of it. And contract work is annoying. So we'll see how that goes. I do think that I've done a really good job I'm very proud of the work that I've done. I do it more like a full-time job in terms of the effort that I put in, the folks that I help. Um, Typically, a lot of the work that I do isn't on camera. It's
Right.
back meetings and helping people. And I think I've helped a lot of people. I think we've put in a lot of really, really great policies. And I think that we've made Guelph a better place, if not slightly more expensive. But when I look across the board, which I do a lot, I look at all of the other municipalities and their property taxes and whether or not they're two-tier and they've got regional on top of their other property taxes and
Right.
what their house values are and what their sidewalks look like and things like that. And I think that um, no shade to the other municipalities, but Guelph is better. And our transit needs some work, but otherwise, I think that we're doing a really, really good job. And I'm very proud of the work that I've done. And I think it's a defensible budget because there's a lot of things that were really thrown at us in this term that haven't happened at all in the past terms. It was wild. So I'm happy to have a discussion with anybody who wants to chat me up about the budget.
Well, there you go. The glove has been thrown down or whatever it is you throw down when you anyway. We will leave it there. Aaron, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.